Forever, I wanna wake up to you. Brushing you off to make up with you. Do all the hoops to lay out with you. Lay out with you. Forever, I wanna wake up to you. Brushing you off to make up with you. Do all the hoops to lay out with you.
Crazy, sexy,
yeah,
cool.
Hey, what all you been through? All clean, all mean, tell me what is the truth. Cool, can me and you be two, then we be one. Never keep the score, almost been done. Cause God's still working and he ain't done. Wouldn't try to search, cause there ain't another one.
And action.
You ready?
Yeah, I just was sharing it. Now I'm ready, man.
Now you ready?
Okay. That could be edited out though, right?
No,
Not at all.
All right, welcome.
Hello.
My name is Ambrosia Brittany,
And I am Philip Joe.
and this is
Brittany and Joe.
We got it right.
We got it right, we back.
Okay.
Been at this for a while now.
yeah.
Good,
Hopefully,
man.
it's been almost a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Wow.
Yep.
Almost like a year anniversary.
Anniversary. Our anniversary was the first one.
Probably. Wow.
That's right, April 28th.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're getting on that date.
Getting on that date. How old we gonna be? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. Of course I know.
Okay, what?
10.
No. See? 9. We're turning 9.
No.
Oh gosh. Don't do that.
We got married in 2011.
We're turning 9 because you changed the date. The
No,
anniversary.
it's still 10.
No, it's
Oh.
not. It's 9.
It's 9. I was
yes.
wrong.
Thank you. It's 9.
In December, it would be technically 10.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh my
Man,
God.
we are excited to be back, man.
Yes.
We're excited to be back in our, new space, new home.
Yep, our new
Shout out
home.
Empowerment Central, man, partnering with us, man. And so, just awesome, man. So
Love
many
it.
good things in store, great things in store. But, man, we're ready to dive back in, man, and,
Yep.
and get to it, man. Man, like I said, we are excited.
Yep.
But, yeah, it's a little
We
heavy.
got a serious topic today.
We do. A little heavy. Well, we good.
But we're good. Yeah. Well, so
Yeah.
what's our topic?
Yeah, well, we are Brittany and Joe. We back. We are
Yeah.
all matters of faith, family, and finance. And so, man, today I think our overall theme and topic is going to be more central on the family.
Yeah.
So
Focusing on the family today.
Yeah, focusing on the family today. So yeah, man, today I think we're talking about from our part 1, man, is just sexual abuse, man, sexual abuse, and
And
it's
specifically in
generation.
the family.
Yes, specifically in the family and its generational impact. And so I think those are things that we're gonna tackle today, and man, with some grace,
Yep.
love, man, and the sensitivity required, man. But yeah, man.
And why is it important to talk about the sexual abuse?
Oh, our why today, man. I think it's one of the things I think is prevalent, in our Black community. I
and
think
a lot of people are suffering in silence.
Yep.
And they're not saying anything, or nobody talks about it.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think sometimes when that happens, what seeps in is normalization.
Yeah.
It happened to me. You'll be okay.
Yep.
But what are you doing? You know what? I'm not okay.
Right.
I am
Or
not okay.
Nobody talks about it, so I feel like I can't talk about it.
Right.
Like I'm not supposed to.
Yep.
Yeah. Sometimes it may be shameful, like I don't want to talk about it because it's embarrassing and it's shameful, or it's I don't want to talk about it because I feel like I can't, or I don't have anybody to talk to it about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or if I'm the one that brings it up, I could be responsible for
What happens next?
what happens next, man.
Yeah. The backlash.
The
or whatever.
backlash,
Yeah.
who wants that responsibility,
Yep.
and it's hard. And we going all off the.
It's
we
okay. It's okay.
And it's
Keep
hard.
going.
Yeah, so it's hard when you're asking of people who are victims or people who's been through it
Yeah.
to not only be the one to expose, right? But then you're also asking them to bear the weight of the responsibility of how people are going to react to it in the family.
Yeah, and how they're going to react to them in particular. Not just, sometimes people want to protect the abuser,
Yep.
but it's also like, well, how are people, it turns on the victim.
Yep.
Like, what were you doing? Why, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would something like that happen to you? It had to be a good reason.
Right, yeah.
You know, stuff like that. So then that makes it hard for victims to want to say something.
Yeah,
and
so then
speak out.
what happens is it becomes a re-traumatization
Yeah.
of what already happened. So like it happened to me, and I'm trying to go through a healing process. Or some people, it's not even necessarily like, oh, I was so intentional about being healed. Some of it is like, man, like some of it could have came out in an argument.
Yeah.
You know, so it was so angry, something happened and popped off, or somebody was a little bit drunk or inebriated and kind of like slipped out, and it's kind of like swept back under the rug. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. And so, yeah, man, I just think it's important for us to talk about that, especially like with the Black community. I think,
Yeah.
you know, I think it hits home for a lot of us, man. And so what do we do in these things? You know,
Yep.
what do we do with those things, man? And so I think one of the questions we had was, you know, when does it become like malicious? And it's like, that's a crazy question.
Right, like,
'Cause if
isn't
it's
all
sexual
abuse
abuse
malicious?
malicious. You know what I'm saying?
that's a good
Isn't it
question.
all malicious, right? And I think one of the things that we talked about is that when you're thinking about generational impact and generational trauma, that sometimes kids who have been abused will then in their adolescence
Yep. Well, then repeat that abuse.
to
Yeah.
younger people in the family.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? And so, you know, when does it become malicious though?
I think that after time, if someone comes back and is like, oh my goodness, like I did this thing and it was just something that I went through and I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? Then that makes a difference than if somebody's just like, well, whatever, we were kids, whatever. You know?
Yeah.
But I just feel like a child, they're learning it from somewhere. And I
Okay.
don't feel like it's a malicious thing.
Okay.
As a child, they don't really understand. They don't have the comprehension to know what they're doing and the impact that it has for the person they're doing it to. Now,
Pause you. All right. Because we know that kids naturally, especially as they get older and even younger, you know, they getting used to their bodies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's some type of, you know, exploration there, some type of curiosity there.
Yep, naturally.
You know what I'm saying? And then your parts look different than my parts. You know what I'm saying? And so like, you know, how do you differentiate between what is exploratory, what is curious,
Right.
and divide that between what actually is someone reenacting what has happened to them.
Right.
Like, and
Well,
even
that
if it
takes
is something that
conversation.
happened to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that takes, like, if you notice something in your children or you catch children doing something like that,
Yeah.
then it takes that, that first emotional maturity
Yeah.
to have those type of conversations with children.
Yeah.
And to prepare yourself for what they say.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I'm really adamant about is just like asking your kids straight out, like, oh, where'd you see this? Where'd you get this from? You're not going to be in trouble. Or, you know, is this something you saw on TV? Did someone show you this? Did someone do this to you? Like really asking those hard questions, I think is really important because you need to know. Parents some parents like don't really want to know because they don't know how they're going to react. And maybe we kind of like avoid the conversation because they're like, oh, it's been fine, nothing's happened, you know?
Yeah.
Like just kind of just like, oh, they with me all the time and I trust everybody around them. But most of the time abusers are people that are around you that have close access to your kids.
Yeah.
To kids, and they're usually family members or close friends. So
Yeah.
I just think that if you catch that, it's good to have those type of conversations.
Yeah.
And then emotionally prepare yourself for any type of answer that your child gives you.
Okay. I think one of the things as well that kind of really does get to this, right? Like is because some of the feelings for parents, you know what I'm saying? And we've had experiences and things like that. And so like one of the things that kind of pops up, you know, for a parent is like the feelings of failure.
Oh, how did
Like,
this happen under my
How did
watch?
this happen under my watch? And not to be for the good parents out there. That's a natural reaction, right?
Yeah.
Like for people who really care about the kids, it's like, how did this happen under my watch if I'm supposed to be a protector? You know, how did this happen underneath your watch? And so, you know, as parents, we have this this dream, right? That we can like protect our kids from any and everything. Any and everything, no matter what happens, especially as a father,
Yeah.
I can protect my daughters from any and everything. I'm that type of whatever
Protector.
I think. I'm that type of protector. Ain't
Yeah.
nothing gonna happen. You can protect her from every single thing.
Yeah.
And so, but then as you kind of like get older and they get older, you kind of start realizing
Yep.
the humility, especially when you having girls.
Yeah.
For me, like it's just like, oh wait a minute, life will teach you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's no way that you can protect from every single thing. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I think also on a side note for me, I think also that helps me with what I would call mental birth control. Because you start thinking about like, okay, how many of these can I really bring into the world and
Right.
effectively feel like I'm doing a good job?
As a parent, yeah. Yep.
As a parent,
Yep.
man, like, okay,
They
man.
take a lot of attention.
Yeah, man.
Oh my goodness.
And you're still not gonna get it right and still gonna miss
Yeah.
stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's like, but anyway, that was just a side note. I had to put that out there, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, like sometimes parents may not want to face the fact of, you know, did I fail as a parent? What else did I not do? When I thought I was doing a good job.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, what else did I not do? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yep. And back to the whole like, is it malicious? Like when you sit down and have those conversations with kids, you kind of get a feeling of what their intention was. Like, oh, I didn't like them, so I did this to them.
yeah.
Or you know what I'm saying? And then
yeah.
that takes another conversation with that kid's parent, or if you are the parent, maybe you have to do therapy.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to have another conversation with other parents, just to make sure that nothing else has happened to other people's kids. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like
yep.
sometimes it's not just your kid who's a victim. Your kid may be the abuser.
Yeah.
You know, and then you
Yeah.
got to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter what we do as parents, sometimes we can't control every single thing that our child does.
Yeah.
But we can take the time to recognize what their needs are.
Yeah.
And try to support them.
Right.
So that's my take on like when they're children and maliciousness.
Right, and this is another thing too as well. Like, and I, you know, it's another parenting thing. So, you know, shout out to all the parents out there, man. And this is no shout out to people who don't have kids or people who don't haven't adopted or haven't did foster care and everything. Like sometimes like there's always this misnomer, right? Like, if you just would have did this, your child wouldn't have ended up like that. And sometimes, man, you can raise that child and give them every single thing that you could possible.
Yeah.
Gave them everything that you didn't have when you was a child. You try to give them all the good that you had in your childhood while detoxing them from the bad that happened, right?
Yep.
And they still did some stupid stuff that they didn't learn from your home.
Because they make decisions
Yeah.
on their own. We can
Yeah.
try to train them up, you
Yeah.
know, we can
Yep.
teach them, we can show them, but they still have to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
And they still have to learn for themselves. So I think that's difficult for parents as well, is like living with the decisions of your children.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
even though you may have taught them a certain way, or
Wow.
you feel like you didn't teach them a certain way and you should have. Like, oh, I should
Wow.
have did this or I should have did that. But it's like,
Wow.
no, they're making decisions on their own now.
Wow,
So how are
living with
you going to react?
And so now that lets me know kind of like a little bit behind the psyche about like why some parents could either, like if their child is the abuser, could either dismiss the behaviors or continue to ignore the behaviors.
Yeah.
It's because it's hard as a parent to live with the decisions that your child makes. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for you to face. You got a hard enough time dealing with things that you did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now you got to deal with their repercussions of what they did. Oh, nah. So like either that didn't happen or
so and so is lying.
so-and-so is
or-
lying.
yeah.
I can't see it. No, because you can't take another thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard for me to live with that stuff. And so I think it's just so complex and it's so deep. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to these matters, whether your child is the abused or the victim, you know? And usually sometimes, like we were talking about, that abuser was a victim first,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. Which
You
could
know?
be, that's why I was talking about having the conversations and asking those tough questions, and having it often.
Yeah.
Not just, oh yeah, when they were 5, I talked to them about it, and then when they were 7, I mentioned it again, and
Nah, we gotta
you know
re-up.
what I'm saying? Like,
you know, we gotta do a what they call that at school. Like I had to do a refresher
course.
Yeah,
I
I had to
guess
take a
so.
refresher course, man. You know, the same because that conversation is different when they hit a teenager.
Oh,
you know,
man.
it's different from when they 5 and 7 because they got different stages of development.
Yep.
They've been watching different TV
And
shows,
different experiences.
different experiences, different music.
Yep.
They in school.
Yeah, especially the music thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
a whole
like
other topic.
all of that stuff like filters into like, okay, this conversation may be a little bit differently now.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
just a little bit differently. So like, okay, so that speaks more so like about the intent, like, you know, and when we ask about intent, right? When
Yeah.
we think about intent, like, does the person's intent make the abuse less or more
Impactful or negatively
yeah,
impactful?
like does it affect the impact? Like whether that person was intentional or whether they weren't intentional, like, you know.
Yeah, I think that it definitely affects the impact, because if it's a child
Yeah.
with a child, that's different than your favorite uncle abusing you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
that's and then because as they get older, as if an abuser is older, then that comes with manipulation as well. So then it's
Okay.
like nobody's gonna believe you, or
It's
everybody
layered.
likes me and nobody likes you, or I'm gonna tell your mom this, or I'm
Or
gonna
this is
say
just
you-
what we do in the family.
Right. Yes. Or no,
The
that's one of the
normalization.
things that we're talking about. Normalizing it.
Yep.
Like, oh, this happened to me when I was young, and that just happens to you, and you'll get over it.
Or this is cool. This is just how
Yeah.
how the family get down. You know, we don't
That's
talk
some
about it.
That's some crazy stuff right there.
Yeah.
Like, that's really crazy. And I feel like it happens, it gets normalized because nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because nobody mentions it, but not everybody, some people know, and they know that it's happening.
Yeah.
Or it may be happening in different generations,
Yep.
but people are still not talking about it.
Right.
Because they just want to like keep the family together.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's a good point that you said about keeping the family together, because that's one of our points too. I think, you know, does keeping the family together, it's a good question though.
Yeah.
Does keeping the family together mean that I have to suffer in silence?
No.
All right.
No,
But
you
but
don't.
but we do that so many times. Like, we don't just do that even in a matter of abuse, sexual
Yeah,
abuse though.
that's true.
Seen people do it within the context of marriage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I've heard this crazy idea that, hey, if and Mario Winans had that song too. I don't wanna know
If you're cheating.
if you cheating, then keep it on the low, 'cause my heart can't take
Yeah.
it anymore. Like basically, if you do something to me, just don't tell me. I don't want to know. And just
That's
lie
big.
well enough to where years can go by to where it just doesn't matter anymore.
Wow, you just ignore it.
Just ignore it, yeah. Like, just don't
act like
tell
it doesn't
me.
exist.
Yeah. So like, would you? Oh,
I
so
can't-
you just?
no,
we
no.
gotta know. Okay. Okay.
H no. No,
Okay.
no.
Wait a minute, wait. I'm not talking about me now.
Oh, my God.
I'm just talking about hypothetically, y'all.
No,
we don't need no
I'm
furniture
talking
moving.
about
We just
when
set this up.
Stop. I'm talking about when it comes more to like sexual abuse stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a firm believer in like, we can talk about it. We don't have to do it in a malicious way.
Okay.
But someone should be allowed to share their experience and what they went through and how it made them feel. And it be okay.
Okay.
Whether that's your favorite
Okay.
person or not in the family.
Okay.
If they did that to somebody, then they did that to somebody.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you attack the victim.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what happens in Black communities that, and Black families a lot of times, is when abuse happens, it may be a person that people like in the family,
Yeah.
or they're really connected with.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, it's okay, honey. Like, just, you'll be okay.
I think that's not just with sexual abuse. I think that's any type of abuse. Like, there's these things.
That's
There are
true.
elements that are the same in all different levels and different areas of abuse. Some of these traits are exactly the same.
Yeah, kinda the same type of cycles.
Yes, the type of abuses may change, but there are principles that there's manipulation involved.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There is
The honeymoon phase
honeymoon
where everything's
fa-
all
yeah,
good and
yeah.
I may bring you a gift, or I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't say sorry, they just give you gifts or
Yeah.
give you some type of privilege.
Right.
Yeah.
And this stuff is normal. You know what I'm saying? And so and then when it's not. And so then like one of the things that, you know, we've dealt with is kind of like, okay, you thought that it was normal, right? But then what happens when you get older and you're living in the world, or you're trying to be in other intimate relationships or being around other people, you get exposed to life other places, and you come to find out that, man,
this is not normal.
That is not normal. And I can't say anything because it's been so long to bring it up now. What would be the point? Why don't I just go, what's the, like this, ask me this, like, or answer me this. Like, why don't I just go and just get therapy, right? Get myself healed, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And then just leave all that stuff alone because it happened so long ago.
Right, and never talk about it.
And never talk about it.
But then,
With family. Like, I've talked to my therapist about it, though. Or, like, really close friends that know.
But usually, when someone abuses someone else, that's not the only person that they abuse. So I think what happens is decades later, somebody else, your favorite little cousin, your favorite little niece, and you figure out, they were abused by that person. Then you have guilt because you never said anything, and they went on to abuse other people in the family.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like if you're a victim, you don't have to say something, but then it's also hard because what if they abuse somebody else?
Yeah.
And then it makes you kind of feel like, man, why didn't I say anything?
Yeah.
Well, I could have protected that person.
Yeah.
Or at least could have made it known.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why abusers kind of get away with it. One is their manipulation. Maybe they're charismatic, or they a lot of people love them in the family.
Yeah.
And another thing is that somebody doesn't want to talk. And then over time, it keeps happening and nobody says anything until years later. It's like, that happened to you, that happened to so-and-so. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
This person has been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
And it's still happening.
Right.
Because nobody's holding them accountable.
Yeah. And I think what's happening, especially like in our black community, I think we are passing on. You see what I'm saying? These things are being passed on to us. And so you think that it's just something that
happened to you.
That just happened to you. And so you don't say that, but you don't understand, man. There is they call it transgenerational trauma.
Wow.
Like, there's things that could happen to your ancestors, or things that happened to your parents, or things that they didn't even have to say anything to you. But it's transgenerational. Somehow it transferred, it was so deep, it got into the DNA, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so deep somehow, you know what I'm saying?
I think it speaks to like our behaviors, how we respond to trauma,
Yep.
how do we teach our kids about different things, how do we move in the world, and we because of that trauma we act a certain way.
Yeah.
And maybe we haven't dealt with it.
Yep.
And so we continue acting a certain way, and we show that or teach that to our children, and they act a certain way like you. Maybe they weren't traumatized in that way. Maybe they weren't abused in that way, but they act like it because that's what they saw you do.
Right.
And you never dealt with that trauma. So then it gets passed on. Now this mentality, this attitude, this perception on life is passed on to generations based on trauma that people didn't deal with.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, this is just how we deal with things.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's not a very healthy way to deal with things.
Well, because now what happens is, I think, and when we talk about the normalization, I think also what happens is that people are finding a way to deal with what happened to me. I think self-medication is not just, I'm going to smoke, or I'm going to drink, or I'm going to sleep with a lot of people. I think some people's form of medication also is like the lies that we rehearse to ourselves. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting drunk off of my own lie. Like my dad used to say all the time. He said, you know, you can lie to anybody. You shouldn't be lying at all. But he said the worst person you can lie to is yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You lying to yourself, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you've convinced yourself that this is okay and that this is all right, and you found a way to just like self-medicate that. You know what I'm saying? I think one of the things that happens also too, and that's for the abusers, but I think one of the things that happens to victims as well is that the person doesn't even have to still be doing that thing to you, right? But you are still traumatizing yourself because you haven't been healed. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now, even though that happened a decade ago, you ask yourself, when was the last healthy relationship I had?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? You ask yourself.
It's a ripple effect of behaviors
Yes.
from the trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and even if you were willfully participating in some of the behaviors that you, part of your self-medication process, you know what I'm saying? Like you were enjoying yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like when you got older and was able to make those decisions on your own, you thought you was enjoying yourself, but you asked yourself, man, when was the last healthy relationship I had? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and why am I attracted to this right here?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Why do I find myself in this side? Why is it such a big, strong pull for me?
And that takes a lot of self-reflection. It takes admitting to yourself, about yourself, about your feelings, and figuring it out, and not just masking it. And just, because sometimes I think that, especially as the Black community, we just push forward and we just keep going. Things happen to us, and we just keep going because that's what we have to do.
That's part of strength, right?
Yeah,
that's part of being strong.
That's part of being strong. What we say is strong, but then at the same time, like I even noticed that in myself with work or anything, like if I'm not feeling well or if something has happened in the family or there's a death in the family or something happens, like we still were like, okay, well, we still go to work the next day.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then we say, oh, we'll deal with it after work, or I'm at work, I can't deal with that right now. You know what I'm saying?
You don't even value yourself enough to say that I need a break.
I need to process this.
Yes.
I need to take the time
We
for
get
myself.
used to not processing.
Yeah, we just keep going.
Yeah.
And I noticed that just like recent things, like recent family things that's happening,
Oh
it's
my
just like we don't even take the time to even like emotionally process the things that are happening.
Not self-medicate.
Right.
Process.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Not like you gonna need to process that.
Yeah.
Because after you get done being high, or after you get done being drunk, or after you get done sleeping with such and whoop de whoop, and after that euphoria and all that, you still got to deal with you.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And one thing kind of like just hit my head as you was talking, like we never process. And even when I think about like computers that have these processors, like man, if you never take the time to process, man, that thing get fried. You know what
It's
I'm
not
saying?
gonna work.
So your moral compass is fried, bro. You know what I'm saying, sis? You know what I'm saying? Like it's your moral compass has been fried because of the things that you never processed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
So yeah, man.
Yep.
Yeah, that's dope, man. So I think we went through our things, man. I think
we didn't talk about remorse.
We didn't talk about remorse. We're gonna have to get them on, man. Remorse. We didn't talk about remorse. Okay,
go
ahead.
What do you do if the person who abused you, like let's say it's out or whatever, what do you do if you never get an apology?
Yeah.
Or if you get attacked? You know what I mean? Like verbally attacked or ostracized from the family or whatever because you spoke up about it.
Yeah.
It's like how do you forgive when someone is not remorseful for what they've done or they haven't acknowledged the pain that they've caused?
I think it's getting therapy. I think it's therapy, and I also think it's recognizing that in life, some apologies may never occur.
Yep.
You know? And sometimes victims, man, if you don't get that apology, the least thing you could do is take your power back. And it's like, okay, I may not get the apology from this person, but you're not going to be able to function without people at least having the knowledge of this is what has happened. Yeah. Now you can go on about your business, lie and deny and move and move and shake how you do. But I'm gonna speak my truth and I'm gonna free myself. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's one of the things they do too, man. I think this deserves like a part 2, man. We're gonna do a part 2 some other time.
Yeah,
man.
Because we didn't get to like,
we didn't get to some other stuff, man. But I think, yeah, man, choosy. It get real choosy. Hey, it get choosy, man. But man, no, man. Thank y'all for joining us today, man. As we talking through this part 1, we decided we are going to do a part 2. We got to do a part 2, man.
Because it's a lot.
Talking about sexual abuse.
We'll take in questions and comments and things like that, and we'll make a part 2 and answer some of those other tough questions. There's lots.
It's a lot, man. Yeah. Man, so thank you for joining us for this episode on Britney and Joe.
And don't forget to like and follow on Facebook and Instagram.
Deuces.